Do you think that you would finish the cup of coffee?
Absolutely not.
Got it. Do you think you would trust whether or not coffee coming from me, or maybe even the coffee brand, that you would have some possible lack of trust as it relates to it?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So here's the thing. Masculine men are protectors and providers. There's nothing poisonous about masculine men, but toxic means poisonous. So if I tell you that masculinity is toxic, that there's poison in masculinity, if I tell you that there's a poison in it, then most men are not going to want to drink from the cup.
A leader has to take the risks. Sanyika, how you doing, dude? How you feeling, man?
How am I feeling? Oh, I feel grateful. I feel grateful. I feel inspired.
Yeah.
And yeah, I feel grateful. I feel inspired. And yeah, I feel like pissed in a good way. Also.
Love that. I love that. And so how are you going to take that being pissed? How do you take that? Like, what are you going to do with that? Right? Because some people, they'll take the being pissed and they'll basically self-sabotage themselves because they'll take the being pissed and then oh, poor me. And then they'll do nothing. They'll sit around and watch Netflix all day. What does somebody like you do when you get pissed?
Oh, that's a great question. The first thing that I do is I get introspective on why I'm pissed. Like what's emerging for me? Like what the lesson, what's the lesson that the pissed or the anger or the frustration is looking to teach me? So what's the lesson that the emotion is trying to teach me? Because that's essentially what the emotion is, trying to get your attention for something. And then, from that place of curiosity, then I look at my purpose. So I immediately look at my purpose, and then I go, how can I take this moment to fuel my purpose?
Mm-hmm.
So then I go, so from that place, it's intention, it's perseverance. It's like, okay, well, let me double down on my purpose in some way, shape, or form. That's really like that's usually what it ends up becoming. Now the question is how quickly can I get there? How quickly can I get to that place? So that's part of my evolution in life. What it used to be was self-sabotage, and it used to be like all the different things that were, me beating myself up and all that other kind of stuff. Now it's, what's my purpose? What's my mission? And then how can I use that energy to fuel my purpose and my mission?
And do you feel like there's a lot of young kids today that are just self-sabotaging themselves? I mean, they're just making horrendous decisions because they get pissed, right? I mean, I'll give you an example. When I was growing up, if somebody would look at me wrong and piss me off, then there was an immediate like, all right, we're going to fight, right? There was always that pissed off to the anger to we both like, what's the point, right? And do you feel like that happens a lot? And where are people getting that from? Where are we learning that from? Or is it just human nature? What are your thoughts?
First of all, one of the things that I tell people is that in this context, I think so I want to juxtapose getting pissed with being happy, which I also see as a slippery slope as well. That Will Smith came out with that movie, The Pursuit of Happiness. And I do not believe that it is our intention in life to pursue happiness. I think it's a very, very myopic and narrow-sighted view. Like, there's 6 core emotions. Joy is one of them. Happiness is a secondary or, a tier of joy. There's joy, there's anger, there's fear, there's surprise, there's love. There's anger, joy, fear, surprise, love. And anger, joy, fear, surprise, love, and for some reason the other ones escaped me. But bottom line is that out of all those 6 emotions, the 6 core emotions, that we would be pursuing only one of them, right? So why would we be pursuing only one?
Right.
So the issue is that there's an expectation that we're either supposed to be happy or that we're not supposed to be angry. So the thing is that those two emotions juxtaposed against each other, it's not effective. And to me, what I believe our pursuit in life is to be fulfilled. And to me, fulfilled means to be able to fully feel all emotions. So can I fully feel my anger? Can I fully feel my sadness? Sadness is the other one. So can I fully feel my anger? Can I fully feel my sadness? Can I fully feel my joy? Can I fully feel my surprise? Can I fully feel like all those different things? Like, can I experience those? And if I can experience joy, which includes happiness, and if I can experience my anger, then what it does is it tells me that I'm just having a natural occurrence of just being human. So what happens with kids is that there's this expectation associated with the emotion. And that's what sends them over the rails. It's the expectations. Like, I'm angry and I'm not supposed to be angry. And I've also associated anger with some physical outburst, right? So now I've associated anger. So now to me, angry is not just an emotion. Like, right, I could be angry right now. I told you I was pissed, I was frustrated, angry, right? But the idea is that, me being angry right now, you don't see me like breaking anything, you know? I'm not throwing anything. I'm not, tossing stuff. And I'm big enough to lift up a lot of stuff. So the thing is that what we do is we associate anger with a certain set of actions. And then we don't want to experience those certain set of actions because we associate that with anger. But what's happening is that there's all these built-in expectations associated with what the emotion is, whether or not we should be experiencing it, what the set of actions that occur as a result of us experiencing it. So then we just completely either go into self-sabotage because we don't know what to do with the emotion, or we avoid it completely and we withdraw, which essentially makes us like a grenade, right? So then when somebody comes up and pokes you the right way, pulls out your pen, then all of a sudden you explode.
Right.
So
Right.
I really appreciate you asking me like what I do with the emotion, because what I do with the emotion is really important thing. How we manage the emotion really informs our experience of life.
That's powerful, man. That's powerful. And this is why us as humans, we need to continue to grow. That this is powerful. Just even the way that you explain that was so powerful. And a lot of people don't think about it like that. They're not, really going into the emotions, trying to feel the emotion so that they can allow themselves to be guided a little bit, maybe on a more mature level. Like you said, you could be pissed, but you don't have to be throwing anything. And you could be upset, but you don't have to hurt anything. And it's just that's a different process. Where did you learn all this stuff, and how did you get to that point? Like, what did your parents do? Tell me about a little bit about your upbringing. How did what were you like when you were young?
Daniel, what I was like when I was young was the opposite. I was all over the place. I did not have I didn't understand how to emotionally navigate the world. My parents I would say my parents were intellectuals. So they had a very high level understanding of things. They knew a lot. But one of the things that and I would imagine that this is something that you experience in your journey, is that there's a distinction between knowing something and having an embodied learning of it, And so when it comes to emotion, especially, like, I can tell you what to do with your emotions. Like, I can say it, I can indicate it to you. But something has to occur on a somatic level. Soma means body. So your somatic nervous system has to be able to respond accordingly. So some people still, they go, oh, I intellectually know what you're telling me about this thing about emotion. I'm not supposed to throw things, but every time I get angry, I still throw things. So why am I still throwing things? It's because I need to reprogram my nervous system. Essentially, what happens is that, and I use these two examples as extreme examples. When people go to boot camp, they're not just learning how to shoot a gun. When people go to boot camp, they're learning how to not shoot the wrong person. And to be able to do that is a certain level of navigating high pressure environment to be able to regulate your nervous system so that you can maintain your composure and your awareness. So there is the intellectual understanding of what emotion is, how it works, all of that. That's an important component. So I got a lot of that from my parents at a foundational level. I had a lot of embedded understanding. But dude, my emotional experience of life was awful because when people would say something to me, man, I would raise my voice, I would yell. I didn't know how to control what was happening. Even if I stopped yelling, I still would feel like just turmoil inside. So I didn't really learn how to process emotion effectively until I went to my first somatic experiencing workshop. So when I went to a somatic experiencing workshop, and for people who understand somatic experiencing, essentially what it is it's a way of navigating through your past so that you can reprogram your nervous system, so that you can understand how to manage traumatic experiences, traumatic responses, and manage how to effectively move through that. And one of the reasons why that's such an important thing to do, especially for men, is because all of the things that you want are on the other side of your ability to effectively manage your emotions. Every single thing that you want, the woman that you want, the body that you want, everything is on the other side of your ability to effectively handle emotions. Because what happens is that when we step into something, step into a process, any process, relationship is a process, parenting is a process, fitness is a process, and you run up against your edges or you run up against your walls, and you don't know how to manage the emotional response, then what we do is we move into exactly what you said, which is self-sabotage, or
Right.
or complete desolation of the people that matter the most to us, and we either push them away, we denigrate them, we do whatever we can to push them away because we can't manage our emotional experience. So every single thing that we want is on the other side of our ability to effectively manage them.
And so when did you decide to at what point in your life did you say, okay, I got this and I'm going all in and I want to start a coaching program. I want to start mentoring people. I want to start challenging people. When did that come about for you? And tell us a little bit about your coaching program too. I'm curious about it.
Sure. Yeah. So one thing I want to include about my parents and my upbringing is that I grew up in Washington, D.C. I'm the youngest of four. Technically, I'm the baby, even though I'm bigger than everybody else. I'm 6'8", and I also did not have a great sense of who I was or what my gifts were. So I was very gifted, but didn't acknowledge myself, didn't see myself. So the only person who I believe when I was younger, when I was growing up, that didn't necessarily believe in me was me. So at least to the degree I wanted to. I played basketball, Division I basketball. I was team captain. I achieved really extraordinary things throughout my life. I've been a signed songwriter on Universal Music Group. I wrote for 98 Degrees and Too Short, all types of stuff. I've done some really amazing things. I've been on TV, acted, television, commercials, all that kind of stuff. But my life didn't really transform until I hit rock bottom. And then when I hit rock bottom, I realized that all of the things that I quote unquote knew were not helping me to create a better quality of life. And so the place that I emerged in terms of like being a coach right now was from rock bottom, what I like to call like a rock bottom sandwich. And that rock bottom sandwich brought me up against the fact that I don't really give a shit, Sanyika, how much you think you know. You need to actually, there's some things that you need to learn on a deeper level. And one of the things that I did not embrace was the fact that I was not being guided by people who were performing at the level that I wanted to perform at. I'm going to say that again. People say that you're the sum of the 5 people that you spend the most time with, right? So then what some people do is they go, oh, so this is what, so now I just got to look at the 5 people around me. And then I just basically say like, okay, well, I guess these are my 5 people to some degree. What that statement is meant for you to be in the evaluation of the quality of the people that you spend your time with, and to assess whether or not those individuals are helping you rise to the next level, and what the next level is for you. So if you have identified what the next level is, and the people that are surrounding you are not supporting or encouraging or even at that next level, then that means that you don't necessarily need to abandon those people, but it means that it's time to elevate the quality of your friends group. So I didn't have community, Daniel. And when I say community, I was isolated, self-isolated. So I'm in rock bottom, self-isolated, financially broke, emotionally broken, 2 DUIs, girlfriend paying the bills, didn't understand anything about what it meant to be a leader. And so running up against myself, what I didn't realize is that I was exactly where I was supposed to be. Because in that moment, I realized that I needed something. I was at the point where I was done pretending like I had it all figured out. And I said, I need something. And that's where I got introduced to a community of men in LA, an entrepreneurs community that you're familiar with, called Metal. And my first Metal meeting, Daniel, I went to Metal, which is about 130 entrepreneurs would meet at a theater in West LA every Saturday. And they would, basically, I was like some of the most successful people in entrepreneurship. So guys like Dave Asprey, Jim Quick, like a bunch of guys like that. Our friend Shane, and the thing about this journey is that what I realized, that I continue to realize more and more, is that the more and more I exposed myself to people, and that it made me think about my life. So I started to think about who I was, who I wasn't, how I was showing up, what I was doing effectively, what I was doing ineffectively, just everything that was happening and that wasn't happening in my world. And then I realized, I said, oh, you know what? I've got to change my life. So that was the spur that started it. So me, I'm a business and leadership mentor to men, but the first man that I had to lead in his life and in his business was me. So I started to understand. That's when it took me on the journey. So first thing was, let me figure out who I am. Let me figure out what's happening inside of me. Let me figure out what it means to effectively navigate through some traumatic experience that I had in the past. Let me figure out what it means to understand who I am, meaning like my identity, reframing my past, getting reflection, understanding how to receive insight, feedback, all of those different things that inform who we are. So that informed that group. And by the way, that group of men was so powerful because here's another thing about it. It was the first group of men I had ever been in, meaning other than basketball, first group of only men, 130 guys every weekend, 600 plus members at the time, more than that now. Not only were they old men, they were older than me. The median age is probably at that time was probably like 45 or 50. Then on top of that, they didn't look like me. I'm like one of like 5 to 10 black guys in the room. And then I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, damn, I was like, man, I'm the only, like one of the only black guys in the room. And I used to and I want you to listen to like with the thought process that was happening. I was like, man, I'm one of the only black guys in the room. I would say that internally. And I say, man, nobody here is, looks like me or allows me to, at least to think that that this is the place where I belong. And then eventually I got to the point where I said, oh, I'm one of the only black guys in the room. Maybe that means that there's something for us to teach each other. Maybe there's something I can learn from them. Maybe there's something they can learn from me. And then that shifted the whole dynamic in terms of my presence there. And then I started to get more active and then more involved. I was starting to get involved in the community. And then when I started getting involved in the community, I started just giving and contributing and serving. I was like, how can I help? How can I help? How can I help? How can I serve? How can I serve? I'm the kind of dude, Daniel, like if you give me, like if I go over to your house, like if you turn around like for long enough, like I'm gonna clean your kitchen. Like that's the kind of, I'll clean your kitchen.
Do you think that, I mean, though that early days when you started hanging out with all these people and you started to kind of get to the point where you were like, okay, I'm the only black guy here and I look different than everybody else and everybody's different. Because I had very similar situation when I was young and I first went into business, and I always thought about myself as a short, uneducated, not smart person, little kid, like young little 21-year-old, and that stayed with me that first couple of years in business, and I really had to start figuring this out because people would ask me questions and I would have to go back and I'd have to study, like over study to make sure that I felt smart. So I think I mean, in a way I overdid it. I overworked because I wanted to master my craft so well that I felt like I belonged. I mean, this is just my experience. And so I'm just curious, I mean, throughout this process that you've been with all these guys and, just an incredible group of men, I mean, super, super successful group of men. And so you go there and then, you're a little bit younger than all of them. Did you feel kind of inferior in a way at all? I mean, did that, was that going through your mind at all? Maybe it wasn't, but I mean, did you feel that way at all?
Hell yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because the reason why I asked that is because I'm trying to make the point that we all feel that way, man. Like, people join a group or they, start a business or they're around different people and we all feel those same emotions. I mean, we all feel like we're not good enough. We all, at some point in our life, right? We all feel like, we don't measure up, we're not, in my case, I'm not tall enough. In my case, I'm not smart enough. My IQ is not the highest. And it takes me a long time to read a page of a book, and all this stuff. And I just want to remind everybody that's watching and listening that I don't care if you're 6'8", because this dude is a big dude. All right. Hung out with him before. So, I mean, it's like, we're like that movie Twins, with Arnold Schwarzenegger and Danny DeVito, and when me and you hang out. Right. And so, and I mean, just a powerful, powerful big guy, man. His biceps are as big as my waist probably. And just an absolute super stud, super nice guy. But even somebody like that walks in a room and he feels at some point in his life, he feels inferior and he feels like he doesn't measure up or he's not good enough. And so we got to all like be okay with that. And as time goes on, what happens, right? You made yourself, you made yourself very valuable to the group. That's one thing you did. You started studying, you started improving yourself and started doing all that stuff to try to, elevate yourself in your own eyes first, because once you felt confident, once you felt great about yourself, then other people started to see you maybe at a different level. Am I making any sense? Does this make sense?
Daniel, this is spot on. So I want to just give some context on this. You said, have I ever felt inferior for a significant period of not only my entry into the group, but in my life? There's this, one of the things that I've come to realize is that especially doing the work that I do now about really helping men to step into like the next level of your leadership. So at the time, I wasn't even in the acceptance. I wasn't even in the full understanding or awareness of what masculinity actually was in terms of who I was as a man. And the reason why masculinity is so important, especially to me, is because of the fact that who we are as men is there's so much confusion. There's a significant amount of confusion, and that confusion, the same emotional confusion that we were talking about earlier, essentially what I did is instead of, as a result of being confused, I just withdrew from even the exploration of who I was. So as you're talking about like the idea of like, me being a big guy who is in this environment, part of the reason that I didn't, wasn't in the acceptance of any of the gifts that God has given to me is because I didn't understand who I truly was. So the journey in discovering and understanding, masculinity and true masculine leadership, as we call it, is about, effective, benevolent leadership, like for men, and so that you can understand how to effectively be a leader in the most critical pillars of your life, your faith, your family, your finances, your fitness. And so for me, that's what the journey was. That's what the journey was. It was the journey into those areas. And I needed support to get to those areas because I didn't really understand what it meant. I had heard about it. I was raised by women. The two strongest voices in my home were my mother and my sister, and they're very powerful women, But the thing is that they were still women, and they didn't necessarily understand how to empower me as a man to be able to be a leader in this world.
Do you think do you think that today's society is really trying to get rid of that masculinity in men? Because I just see there's so many weak men today. I mean, like more than ever, like really, really, men that do not possess masculinity. And it's almost like, is there kind of a shift happening in our world saying, look, society doesn't want masculine men. We want weak men, and we want masculine women. Do you see that?
So this is the fun part of the conversation for me. I mean, the whole thing is fun, but I get a lot of rise from this kind of conversation because I think that, like when people talk about masculinity in society, like there's this idea that the enemy of masculinity is femininity. And that's not those are two opposing, just two poles, like they just exist on opposite poles. So there's masculine energy, there's feminine energy. The enemy of masculinity is neutrality. It's just neutrality. It's just like, it's like the gray. It's like, it doesn't really matter, right? And so to me, like, that's the thing that gets that. So, but because masculinity is so deeply misunderstood, and people, there's this idea that says, hey, we want men to show up in this way. We want to be more, to show up in a more powerful way. But every time we have this conversation about masculinity, we blast masculinity. And then as a result of blasting masculinity, what you do is you actually repel men from wanting to actually want anything to do with it. It's like, here's the example I use. So Daniel, let's just say, for instance, like you were somebody that likes coffee, right? I don't know if you like coffee, but let's just say, for instance, you're somebody that likes coffee. So there you go. You like coffee. So in this case, would you be open to me giving you a cup of coffee?
Yeah.
If I had a cup of coffee, great.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. So I give you a cup of coffee. And then as you start to drink from this cup of coffee, I go, you know what? By the way, that coffee is poison. Do you think that you would finish the cup of coffee?
Absolutely not.
Got it. Do you think you would trust whether or not that coffee coming from me, or maybe even the coffee brand, that you would have some possible lack of trust as it relates to it?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So here's the thing. Masculine men are protectors and providers. There's nothing poisonous about masculine men, but toxic means poisonous. So if I tell you that masculinity is toxic, if there's poison in masculinity, if I tell you that there's a poison in it, then most men are not going to want to drink from the cup. But the gateway for men to understand how to shift from some of those ineffective behaviors, and there's many different men on many different spectrums. Like there's the guy who runs away from his life because he's scared of his shadow, right? There's the guy that is on the other end of the spectrum who's like, who's the rah guy, the guy that who needs to boast and to sort of like everything's like a dick measuring contest or something like that. So you have these different components of these different guys, and the thing is that the truth is definitely available. But the reason that the guy doesn't go search, neither of those guys really go searching for the truth, is because the idea of masculinity has been blasted through the media as toxic. So every time that masculinity gets blasted as toxic, then nobody wants to touch it. Nobody wants to drink from a cup of coffee that has poison in it, right? So then why would I explore myself? Why would I try to find out more about who I am? Why would I try to find out, how to show up more effectively in my relationship? So then what happens is you end up in a relationship, and then your partner says, you put your business first too much. And you hear it the first time, you're like, yeah, okay, I know, but I got to keep making more money. Basically the mule syndrome. It's like, keep putting more stuff on the mule, he'll keep doing stuff, put more on the mule. And then she says it a second time, and a third time, and an eighth time. And she said, I need you home more often. I need you more present with the kids. We don't have enough structure in the home. You start losing your fitness, but you're making the money, right? You're making the money, your fitness is sacrificed, and everything is not going the direction that you truly want it to go. And then essentially what happens at that point is then months or years later, she serves you with the divorce papers and says, I can't do this anymore. Catches you off guard. You're like, whoa, what's happening? Where did that come from? I didn't see that coming. The reason that you didn't see it come is because you weren't looking. And when you're not looking, you can, there's a quote, it says, stay ready so you ain't got to get ready. That's what it means to show up in your leadership. There's 2 times for leadership, Daniel, and this is one of the things that I learned in my journey. Would you like to know what those 2 times are? If they were on a clock and I had this clock and they were on this clock, there would be one time at the bottom that says only and one time at the top that says always. And so what I am inspiring men to step into is not just the idea of being a man. There's enough guys who are trying to climb that ladder and doing so maybe unsuccessfully. My invitation, Daniel, is for men to step into being a king. And the idea is that when you step into being a king, there's a different set of expectations associated with it. Like you got to sit up a little straighter. There's more asked of you, and there's more given to you. You're trusted more. You're seen as a leader. And some guys don't realize the fact that there's a significant amount of men that have literally relinquished the crown. That's what you were talking about. That's the weakness. They've given up the crown. They've given up the crown in those pillars of their life. They've given up the crown in their fitness. They've given up the crown in their finances. They've given up the crown with their family. They've given up the crown with their faith. They don't even believe in themselves. They've just tossed in the crown. My father was one of those people. My father was a Yale-trained architect, very, very on the social climb. And as he rose to the next level in his journey in life, what essentially happened is he started to go into the next level, and he didn't accomplish the level of success that he thought he should accomplish. So he had 4 kids, and by that time, when I was 7, he looked at his life. He looked at what's going on. He said, I got to do what? And I got to raise who? For how long? Let me just take this thing off. Took off the crown.
Right.
And he just put it on the ground.
Right.
Now, here's the thing. The thing is that when he took off the crown and put it on the ground, my mother picked it up. That's where your masculine women come in. But here's the thing. She can't wear it. It's not hers to wear.
Right.
So she just has to carry it. So what many women are doing is they're carrying the crown that the man chooses not to wear. And they're trying to figure it out because they don't want the shit either. And many of them convince themselves that they want it. But the truth is they don't really fucking want it. And he doesn't want it either for whatever reason. So he doesn't want it. She doesn't want it. And now they're just basically both fighting over the fact that neither of them wants to own the fact that somebody's got to wear it. And that my invitation to men in this is that your primary responsibility is to understand that you were evolutionarily designed by God in this planet to be a leader. You were designed to be. There's genetic components associated in you that say that this is your journey and your path in life. And then as a result of that awareness, coming to that awareness, then we can start the inquiry of how to implement it. But you have to become the guy that says, oh, you know what? It's in me. It's in me. And holding this money, holding this pot of gold does not inherently make me a leader. If I hold the trust and the sanctity and the values of my family, and I hold their love and their admiration and their respect, and you have a woman that comes in and that calls you king like my wife would and does, when you have a woman that actually reflects that in your life, that shows you that you're showing up as a leader. And so my invitation and the work that I do is to help men to cultivate a deeper and more profound sense of who they are, what leadership actually looks like, effective leadership, so they can show up in not only in their life, but in their business and beyond. Like that's the way that this is. And so I use my gifts, I use my voice, I use my art, I use my storytelling, I use all the different gifts that God has given me to be able to corral and to teach men how to step into the greatest essence of who they get to be, so that we can usher in this world that we know exists. It's just living beneath this surface and this muck and this layer of fear and, and this confusion that is not being broken through. So my intention is to break through it. And that's where, I've created All In Leadership and the next evolution of All In Leadership, which is Calling All Kings.
And so I know there's 12 kind of fundamentals or principles and laws of, really creating that king mindset. What are some, I want you to tap into a couple of those ideas, or maybe a couple of those points that you can share, so that we can kind of dive into a little bit, some specifics. Like, okay, so I'm a man that I want to become, I want to get to that point. I want to rise to that next level of leadership in my business, in my marriage, in my relationship. And so what are a couple of the other specific things that you could dive into, that you could share?
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because the first one is one of the most critical ones, and we've talked about it a couple times. But I have to become a man who is aware that lives in him. So self-awareness through feedback. Feedback is the breakfast of champions. So one of the things that we have to become aware of is, one of the first things that I do when I start working with someone is that we lay out who they believe themselves to be. So get an assessment of who they believe themselves to be. And then after we get an assessment of who they believe themselves to be, then we say, okay, this is who you see yourself to be. Great. Now we take that to your stakeholders. And who are your stakeholders? Well, your stakeholders are, in many cases, your wife or your partner, your kids, the people that your clients, your customers, depending on the type of business that you have. I work with business owners, entrepreneurs, guys that are performing at that level. But those are the people, they go back to their business and they say, look, this is who I believe myself to be. Who do you see me to be? How am I showing up in my business? And there's some guys who are even hearing this right now and it's like, ooh, I don't know if I want to go back to my clients or my customers and ask them and get a feedback, right? Or they go, yeah, we send out feedback surveys all the time, so we get blah, blah, blah. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about, this is an in-person, meaning a personal thing that you do where you are literally reaching out directly as the CEO and you're getting feedback from people on how you show up. And that we're so afraid of feedback that we operate by the law of assumption. And then we just assume everything is the way that we believe it to be because it's the way that we've convinced ourselves that things are going. And then when you see that Rome is burning and the walls are crashing, you're like, why is everything falling the way that it's falling? It's because we're not in the assessment of how things are actually going. So the reason that I had a conversation with a client one time, I said, in two different areas of his life. Well, this is in two different areas of two different guys' lives. I said, he runs a business, but he's been running for 14 years. He's got 10 employees. I said, when's the last time you did a weekly stand-up meeting? I said, when's the last time you did a vision day with your team? He said, I don't know, maybe like a year and a half ago. I said, okay, a year and a half ago, vision day with your team. So maybe that's a little extreme. I said, okay. How often, I said, what time are you, every week, are your weekly stand-ups? Your weekly meetings with your team? He's like, well, we haven't had a meeting in, I don't know, maybe, about a year. I was like, you haven't had a weekly meeting with your team in about a year? Yeah, he's like, we got, these money problems. It's like, you don't have a money problem. You got a leadership problem. Are you telling me that you haven't had a meeting with your team in a year? Over a year? And you have employees? How would they know what's going on? How would you know? How would you know where you're going? How would they know? You're telling me that that's what's happening in your life? My brother, we got work to do. This is where you step into your next evolution of being a king. This is where it happens right now. This is how it goes. All right.
It's interesting that you're talking about this, because I was just having this conversation the other day with a friend, and I told him, I said, look, I called my mentor every single day for 5 years straight. So I think I was like 23 years old,
Mhm.
just became a VP of the company. And I said, I'm gonna reach out to this main guy, right? One of the most successful people in the company. And I'm gonna reach out to this guy every single day. And I mean, we didn't have a conversation every day. I just would we used to have this voice tell system where you could leave them a message up to like a minute or 3 minutes or something like that. And I called him every single day. He didn't respond every single time, but he responded a lot. And so when you're talking about feedback, it's critical, right? You have to have a mentor. You have to have somebody that you can check into because I did for 5 years and I woke up. I had a business that was paying me $500,000 in passive income and I had $1 million saved because I did that. I mean, that's how powerful it was for me in my life. So the feedback, this just constant checking. I mean, when the other thing that I was thinking about as you were making your point is that my entire career in business, our tagline was building leaders. So when I went into business, I didn't think about just making sales. I mean, that was not the only thing on my mind. The one of the most important things on my mind was actually building good human beings, right? Building actual leaders. Because the reason why I have a lot of freedom and choices today is because we have, 55 locations that are run by, 55 actual leaders that can run their own show, do their own things, be incredibly successful in their own right, because we spent so many years building and accountability and coaching and systems and running the play. And I think so. Everything you're talking about right now is just, this is gold for any entrepreneur, for anybody that needs guidance and needs leadership. You got to find somebody like you. People need to find somebody like you that can guide them to make better choices. Now, I don't know how your accountability works or how all that works, but the bottom line is having somebody like you to guide them to that next level is imperative to the success of people out there. So,
Well, first of all, I appreciate that and fully receive it. And thank you for that. And mentorship has been one of the most amazing gifts that I've ever had in my life. I will tell you that if I was in my early 20s and I had a mentor like you who was telling me that I needed to call and check in with my my mentors on a daily basis, my life, I don't know, I don't think I would have crashed when I crashed in my life. So I'm just letting you know, like the way that you just articulated that is so critical and so important, because these are lessons that we are not taught unless we have someone like you or like me who is able to be able to embed this in us. This is not a very common conversation. This is a 1% conversation. So that's the first thing. Number one is that that these types of feedback is really critical, but not just in your business. The one thing I ask people a question, if they're in a relationship. I was doing a talk and I was talking to this group and they were talking about the relationship. I said, what time is your weekly scheduled meeting with your partner? And they said, they were like, oh, we have one like sort of like every we talk every Sunday. We don't really have one. That's basically exactly. I said, got it. I said, well, here's the deal. I said, are you ready? He said, yeah. I said, if you don't have a weekly scheduled conversation with your partner, then you don't have a relationship. You have a time bomb. Where could you talk about the fact that you're not having enough intimacy? When could that occur? How could it occur? Where could it occur? If there's no container or environment for the conversation to occur. You over TV or dinner with the kids or in the car when you're on the way to somewhere important and you both feel stressed out and you're trying to make the right turn and you're hearing GPS, you're trying to talk about the thing and you're not looking at each other. You're telling me that? Look, or in text message when you're Look, I tell people, I don't have conversations about anything critically important via text ever. It's very factual, matter of fact, jokes, stuff like that. If it's something important, I'm like, yep, we need to have a conversation about this. Number one. So number two is that if I'm in a conversation with somebody and, with my partner, and so we have weekly scheduled meetings. We have one meeting about the vision of the family and one meeting about money and finances, logistics. All right. Those are the two meetings that I have with my partner on a weekly basis. Other than like outside of that, like one of the other things that we do is we cultivate time to make sure that we're tending to each other. So we practice things like a digital siesta, meaning like we don't have cell phones and stuff at a certain period of time, 7 o'clock at night. And we're using that to cultivate either relationship, or sometimes I'm doing like, youth basketball coaching or whatever it is. Like the point is that these environments are really critically important because they create the environment for relationship to occur. What many people are in is they're with someone, but they're not in a relationship with someone. You have a roommate, you don't have a partner. So the leadership component becomes really critical in terms of understanding how to navigate, like you were talking about, like the mentorship, the guidance becomes really critical because that, number one, helps to illuminate what's really happening in the relationships that are the most important for you, whether they're your business, yourself, or your life.
So I have a really important question because I know a lot of people are thinking this right now. They're going, shit, man, you got an amazing partner, right? I mean, first of all, give it up for your wife because she made a decision a long time ago that she was going to say, all right, man, I'm in. I'm all in with you because, to have a weekly meeting, most guys are thinking, ain't no way, man. My wife don't want to sit down and have a weekly meeting with me. My girlfriend, she doesn't want to have, like, that's just, what are we going to talk about? Why do we got to have this talk? Why do we got to do this? I'm busy. I got this going on. I'm working. I got to do this, that, whatever, so what do you tell that guy? What does he do? Does he break up with the girlfriend or does he divorce the wife? Like, how does he navigate that situation? Because that's going on all over the place, especially maybe he didn't do a good job at leading the relationship. And the next thing she's in control. So she's like, I don't want to do that. And so how do you navigate that, man? What do you tell that guy?
The first thing I tell that guy is that I understand. I haven't always been this guy, and I don't pretend to be. The second thing that I tell that guy, whoever that guy is I give him the rusty pipe distinction. So the rusty pipe distinction is this. So imagine that you have a rusty pipe, like a pipe. Pipe gives you water, right? Water is a critical, essential element of life. Now, if this water running through a pipe, if that water gets turned off, it stays off for a while, what happens to the nozzle? If it's a metal pipe, it starts to get a little rusty, right? And then eventually it gets harder to turn the longer that you don't turn on the nozzle, the handle. And then that thing that you used to use water for, which is an essential nourishing element of life. Now you're like, well, instead of getting water from the pipe, I might go out and start getting, bottled water. Might start going out and getting some other water because I need water, but I'm just not going to get it from this pipe because this pipe there's too much has happened, and we haven't had the important conversations and we haven't had the things that needed to get to keep the pipe flourishing and going. So then what happens is that we end up in this space where the water is, where we start going in, and then I bring to the awareness, like, look, this rusty pipe, my brother, is your relationship.
But
And you have been going out and you've been, getting your water from other places. And whatever that means to you, that can mean a lot of different things, whatever that means to you. And the thing is that you've been getting it from that water, you've been getting from the other woman, or you've been getting it from porn, or you've been getting it from food, or you've been getting it from whatever. You've been getting whatever you've been getting outside of the nourishment that comes out of that pipe. And so then they go, all right, so what I need to do, so I tell them, hey, look, one of the most important things is to have a clearing conversation to clear the pipe. And they go, well, what's going to happen? I wasn't an effective leader. I wasn't, all this other kind of stuff. I'm like, here's what's going to happen. I'm just going to let you know this. And I'm going to love you either way. Is that you're either going to clear out the pipe or the pipe's going to get replaced. I'm just telling you a law of the universe. All right. This is bigger than me. All right. So what's going to happen is that pipe is going to get cut off and they're going to replace it. Do you want the pipe replaced? Now, if your ego tells you, yes, I want the pipe replaced, then that just gives you your answer, right? But if you'd like to actually resolve what's happening in the pipe, it's a resilient pipe. It is. You can turn it on. Here's what's going to happen. First thing you do when you turn on that pipe, what's the color of the water that's going to come out? It's not going to be clean and clear. It's going to be dirty. So here's what's going to happen. You need to cultivate the emotional resilience to understand that when that water comes out, it's going to be dirty. It's going to be nasty, and it's coming out with a vengeance. So your job is to weather the storm because it's coming. Because of the fact that you have not been in your leadership to effectively manage the pipe. Here's the thing. It's your house, dude. Your job is to manage the pipes. I'm not saying you need to be a plumber, but dude, you got to make sure that the things that need to be tended to are getting tended to. So if they're getting tended to, the first water that's going to come out of the pipe, what color is it? Brown. That means you hold your resilience, you hold presence, you hold space, and you let the water come out. And then as the water starts to come out, all of a sudden, if you let it run for long enough, then what's going to occur is that it's going to end up getting clear. That's your job. I'm not saying that this is a full-scale guaranteed resolution for success in every relationship, and success meaning that forever is imminent. What I'm saying is that when you're in your leadership, an effective leadership, that you're in the daily maintenance of the things that bring you nourishment, the things that bring both of you the things that you need to survive and to thrive. And water is one of them. So it is your responsibility to make sure that the pipe stays clean. That's what I would tell that.
Wow. That was awesome, man. That was powerful stuff. So men, at some point they got to just step up and say, this is what it's going to be. This is how it's going to be. But they got to be resilient enough to weather that time period between the dirty water and the clean water, because it's going to take time. Everything. I mean, I've been saying this forever, right? Anything that's of any value or anything that's supposed to be or good, it takes time, right? It takes effort. It takes time. It takes resilience. It takes perseverance. And that's some powerful stuff, man. Wow. I think we could probably have this conversation for another 3 hours, but this was good stuff, man. I just want to make sure that you get that there's a way for you to connect with my audience and really, start making some new friends. One of the things about, I mean, for me, I've been very, very lucky. I mean, having this podcast for now, I don't know, almost probably 5 years now. And I mean, I've interviewed 250 great people just like you. And I feel so lucky and fortunate because I get to surround myself around all these just amazing thinkers and these amazing people. And you're one of them, man. So I am 100% endorsing you and want everybody to know that, like, if you feel like you need a coach, if you need a mentor, if you need somebody to help, get you to that next level, please reach out, say hi. And worst case scenario, Sanyika's a freaking awesome dude. And if you just reach out and say hi, right? I mean, he doesn't want anything from you. Just go build a relationship. Go say hello. Say, hey, look, I saw you on Wealth on the Beach podcast with Daniel Alonso, and just reach out and say hi to him and thank him for his wisdom and the value that he brought to the table today. So I appreciate you, man. Tell us how everybody can reach you, get a hold of you, connect with you. Give us the whole ball of wax, man.
I will give everybody the whole ball of wax and then some. First thing I want to say, Daniel, is that it's really an honor to be with you, man. It's really an honor to be with you. When I first met you, I was like, man, this dude is sharp. And sharp meaning intelligent, sophisticated, brilliant, really precise. And Like you're a model for, I mean, other than just like being a good looking dude, like you're a model for like what I believe to be like what it means to be a guy who steps into his true masculine leadership. You know, like you really embody the characteristics and the traits and just like what it is to really step up in your leadership, man. So I really just say thank you for just us having this conversation. And more so for you being who you are on a daily basis. You know, it's really, really extraordinary to see guys like you who are ushering in this world, man. And that's part of my mission is to be a stand for guys that bring it in the way that you bring it. So thank you for that.
Appreciate that. Appreciate that, man.
Indeed, man. You can reach out to me on Instagram at the All In CEO. But I say the primary place to go is to Calling All Kings, and go to Calling All Kings. My intention for Calling All Kings is to be the premier destination for elite businessmen that want to literally step up in terms of who they are in their life, in their leadership, and beyond. And it's not an environment where a guy can just go to be just a good man. This is about men who want to rise to the highest level of their leadership and step into being a king.
Good stuff, man. Good stuff. Well, I appreciate you, man. I want everybody to go reach out, say hello. Please do that for me. Like and share and subscribe. And, let's make sure that we share this with everybody you know. I mean, make an effort, right? There's a little share button on YouTube. Share it, man. And then send the link to somebody, to 3, 4, 5 people, whatever, anybody in your contact list, send it out and say, you got to hear this guy, man. You got to hear this. This is incredible, incredible information. Awesome insight today. And I want to remind everybody that, look, you got to step up. It's time for you as a man. And look, and you women as well, right? I mean, you need to step up into whatever it is that you're called to go do and start becoming your best version of you. It's time, right? I mean, I don't know. I feel like this is the greatest time in history to live. I feel like we're lucky. Not to mention we were born in America. Thank God, right? The greatest country in the world. I feel so lucky. I feel so grateful. I feel so happy that I got to live here. Like this is my country. And I just feel like we got to take advantage of that. I mean, we have like freedom and options like anybody. I mean, think about it, right? It doesn't matter how tall you are. Thank God, right? It doesn't matter what color you are. Okay. Thank God, right? It doesn't matter. None of that shit matters, man or woman. Everybody gets their own shot. Because we live in America, we get our own shot to be who we want to be and to be as successful or not as successful as we want to be. But we have a shot, man. And I feel so grateful and lucky for that. And I just want to encourage everybody, don't waste that on, sitting on the couch watching Netflix every day. You know what I mean? Like find something that you love, man. Maybe you want to write a book, or maybe you want to start a podcast, or maybe you want to, really like get mentored by somebody that you trust and you want to rise to that next level of your life. I mean, it's all possible. Anything and everything is possible. And I just hope that I'm challenging you, right? Because don't procrastinate your life away, right? I mean, I'm challenging you to take that first step today. Do that one thing, right? Find something out of this podcast today and take one thing and then just go do it. Apply it, right? I mean, I think one of the best pieces of advice for people in relationships is to have that Sunday night conversation, right, with your partner and again, talk about the finances, talk about, right? Because we know that a lot of people get divorced because of the money. So why not just eliminate that factor and get your money right? Get on the same page with your partner and get that right. And have those tough conversations and get on that same page with the people that you love and get accountable to somebody, like really, really, stick to somebody that's doing it right now and say, look, I want to be in your situation. Find a mentor. One of the best, easiest ways to become successful is go find a mentor and then just copy, right? Doesn't mean you have to be them or you have to look like them or you have to talk like them, but there's certain traits that the one thing I know better than anybody, man, after interviewing all these successful people. I mean, do you realize How many people, right? They are, I mean, so successful today, and they came from places like us, right? Like us, that had tough upbringings, right? Gotten lots of fights, had anger issues, had problems most of our life, and all of a sudden, right? You make a change, and then you change your life. It's all possible. All of that is possible, and I hope every one of you, So hey, look, close us out right now, man. Tell us some final thoughts, man. Give us another gift here today.
When you were talking about the Sunday night meeting, I would say that one of the best things that we can implement in our lives to govern these conversations is to have a one sentence or two sentence philosophy in the most critical areas of your life, in your faith, your fitness, your finances, and your family. So the philosophy meaning like a thought process or a way of thinking about things, right? So for instance, my personal philosophy is that all great achievements come through commitment. That's my personal philosophy. That's why All In Leadership exists. So every extraordinary accomplishment that has ever been created comes through commitment. So that governs the way that I move and the way that I think about things. So when I commit to something, I'm like, oh, I'm committing to this. What is it going to take of me? How is it informs the way that I think about it, the questions that I ask, the way that I show up for my commitments, how I issue my word, where I issue it. Like all those things come as a result of that philosophy. So my offering to you is to identify a philosophy with your coach or your mentor, whoever's guiding you or your partner, so that you can have a way of thinking about things, a way of thinking about money, a way of thinking about fitness, a way of thinking about your family, so that you have an idea that governs the way that you move. But to me, the most extraordinary gift that I can give you right now is just my own personal philosophy that all great gifts, all great things emerge from commitment. And the two commitments that I make every single day are to be a man who lives in alignment and a man who lives in integrity. So
badass, man. You're a badass, dude. Appreciate you. Love you. And for everybody else, man, just continue to dream bigger than ever. Get after it. But most importantly, do it now. God bless you. We'll see you at the top.
big love, brother.